safe and healthy in these challenging times. As I mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded and the recording will be available later. So if you would like to have the link to it, please send us an email. You have our contact information throughout the presentation, so feel free to reach out to us and request the link. So today we have our whole platform here to present an update on the Brazilian education market. Brazil is the priority country for Canada, and we have 6 trade commissioners covering education in the different regions of Brazil, 1 in each of our offices in the country. Ana Paula, if you can show us the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. So here you have the previous one, sorry, with the trade commissioners in Brazil. You have our names and contact information. It's actually the slide number 2, Ana Paula, please. Yes, there you go. Thank you. So you have our names and email addresses. There has been a slight change in our team that's very recent. So this slide is not reflecting the current person in charge of education in Brasilia. When we send you, if you're interested in having a copy of this presentation, we'll send you the email information and the contact information for the person in charge of Brasilia. So for the next slide, yes, thank you. So Canada is very well perceived here in Brazil as a study and research destination for all levels of education. Canada's greatest advantage is its strong brand, which gives Brazilian politicians, elite high schools, agents, and top-ranked universities, as well as the public, a very positive perception of the country. So for a Brazilian student, Canada is clearly perceived as a high-quality education and research destination with a high quality of life. Brazil offers a number of positive market entry factors in the education sector, including a large target population of potential students and pockets within this target population with sufficient ability to pay for studies abroad. Also, foreign degrees are very well regarded among Brazilian employers and are also seen as a way to gain an edge in a very competitive domestic job market. Education in Brazil is offered in both public and private institutions, and quality varies greatly between the two. So one of the challenges in Brazil's public education sector is the overall poor quality of the public primary and secondary systems. Although the vast majority of children and youth enrolled in basic education attend public schools, private high schools offer the best quality education in Brazil. Public universities, on the other hand, are usually among the best ranked in the country, although some private universities are also very reputable. So Brazil has a population of approximately 210 million people. There are approximately 48 million students in K-12 schools in Brazil. And in 2018, which are the most recent numbers available, more than 8 million Brazilians were enrolled in college and university undergrad programs. 75% of these students were enrolled in private institutions. And there were over 360,000 at the graduate level, and about 85% of them were enrolled in public institutions. These numbers are, of course, being impacted by COVID-19, and we're seeing Brazilians interrupting their post-secondary studies because of the economic impact they suffered due to the pandemic, and also parents moving their children from private to public K-12 schools. I'll be covering more on the impact of COVID-19 in Brazil later today. So of the approximately 41,000 private schools in Brazil, it is estimated that approximately 3% are bilingual schools. So mostly Portuguese-English, but there are also Portuguese-German, Portuguese-French, and Portuguese-Spanish. It is also interesting to highlight that there are 30 international schools, those that have the IB system in the country. So Brazil has been the #1 source country for Languages Canada's programs since 2018. Brazil is also the #1 source country of students in Latin America and the 8th in the world for Canada. On December 31st, 2019, there were more than 14,000 Brazilians with a valid study permit in Canada. That means an increase of almost 6% when compared with 2018. And this brings me to the topic of visas. So as of May 1st, 2017, Brazilian citizens are able to fly to or transit through Canada with an ETA, the Electronic Travel Authorization, instead of a visitor visa if they have held a Canadian visitor visa in the past 10 years, or if they are currently holder of a valid US non-immigrant visa. So the ETA is not valid for all Brazilians, just for those Brazilians that have this history, this background of travels to and visas to North America. If a citizen of Brazil doesn't meet the eligibility criteria for an ETA, they need a visitor visa to travel to Canada for studies lasting less than 6 months. And for students going to Canada for studies longer than 6 months, they require a visa and a study permit, for which a medical exam is required. The approval rates here in Brazil for study permits are historically quite high. The postgraduate work permit also encourages Brazilians to go to Canada to do full diplomas, as immigration is often the ultimate goal of Brazilians. But I must also highlight that at this point, there are travel restrictions, as we're all aware. There are travel restrictions for Canada due to the pandemic. They remain in effect, and most students still cannot enter Canada, even if they receive an approval on their study permit application. So under current travel restrictions, students from countries other than the United States are only permitted to travel to Canada if they hold a valid study permit or were approved for one on or before March 18th, 2020. So additionally, all students, including those from the US, must be traveling to Canada for an essential purpose. So for instance, their current residence is in Canada, or their learning institution is reopening for classes, or they're unable to study online from their home country. So this is where we stand at today, August 13th. Of course, the situation changes with time, and so we must keep updating this information as the situation evolves. Regarding Brazil, culturally speaking, to develop a solid relationship with a partner, face-to-face interaction is very important. And in the past, we would recommend that a visit to Brazil be made at least once a year. As the current situation with the pandemic is uncertain, we do not know when such travels would be feasible again. However, it is still important to maintain regular contact throughout the year with your partners in Brazil, and you can use online platforms for that. For direct student recruitment, participation in international studies fairs in Brazil is recommended in order to create a direct link with potential students. And Canadian institutions have great visibility at the Edu Canada fairs. The next edition of the Edu Canada fairs will take place virtually on September 24th. We will also do a B2B event on September 23rd, and I hope to see many of you join us for these events. At the end of this presentation, I'll be speaking a little bit more about that. So FPP, who organizes the fair on our behalf, did a virtual Edu Canada Fair for Latin America in May, in which more than 6,000 students in the region participated, 12% of them being Brazilian. And FPP also recently did a survey with students throughout the world, and 74% of Brazilians stated they would join an online event with international institutions in order to chat live with their representatives. It is noteworthy that although this represents the vast majority of Brazilians, this is still the lowest rate among those students surveyed in Latin America. So to reach the target audience in Brazil, communication in Portuguese is key. It is important for the Brazilian student to be comfortable in his or her understanding of the information. And it's worth noting that while it is possible to use Spanish, for Brazilians, it's quite easy to understand Spanish. This is an insufficient workaround, and it can be interpreted by the Brazilian public as a lack of interest in our own language. Two other very important characteristics of the market, recruitment-wise, are that it is an agent-driven market, as most of Latin America is, with approximately 70% of Brazilians going through an agent to purchase their program to study abroad. And as you may know, agents in Brazil charge a commission to the educational institution, not to the client. Therefore, having a reputable network of agents in Brazil is a good recruitment strategy. Another thing is that Brazilians are extremely active on social media. 120 million Brazilians are on Facebook, the fourth largest nationality on this platform. We're also third on Instagram with 82 million users and sixth for Twitter with 14 million. So we recommend that you keep that in mind to raise the profile of your institution and be active on social media. Videos tend to draw viewers' attention more than other regular posts, and using your alumni as ambassadors to talk about the experience of studying in your institution are also good strategies to engage with the Brazilian public. So for the next slide, I'm going to be speaking a little bit more about the Belta market research. So in Brazil, as you may know, there are no consolidated data for student mobility abroad. However, Belta, which is the Brazilian Education and Language Travel Association, performs an annual market research with education agents and students across the country. And that is a very good indicator for determining the main destination countries for pursuing studies abroad. So for 15 years in a row now, the study showed that Canada is the #1 destination for Brazilian students. This is mainly due to the amount of Brazilians seeking language programs. According to Belta's preliminary results for 2020, agencies sent approximately 386,000 Brazilians to study abroad in 2019. So this translates into a $1.3 billion US sector. We have participated in the latest edition of this research and included questions specific on Canada to gather further market intelligence. And I'm going to be sharing some of those findings with you today. So this study found that the most popular programs for Brazilians coming to Canada, according to agents, are first English programs, then high schools, followed by summer programs. College degrees comes in fourth, followed by French programs, and then certificates, diplomas, those that are short-term career focused, then universities for undergrad programs and grad programs, master's and PhD. So the same market study also provided an insight on the decision-making process of these students. Most students stated that their first point of contact with Canada as a study destination was through online searches, followed by recommendations from friends and family. In third place is the advice from agents, followed closely by education fairs. One very interesting data is that almost 12% of these students stated that their first point of contact with Canada as a study destination was through YouTube, and 4.3% through Instagram. So Facebook does show on this interview, but only with 1.9% after television and magazines. So at this point, we find that for Brazil, it is no longer a very effective platform to promote studies in Canada, Facebook that is. We also asked which provinces these students were most familiar with and considered for their program. And British Columbia showed as the most popular province for Brazilians, with more than 61% of people interviewed stating they were familiar with the province and considered studying there. However, when asked where they actually went for studies abroad, Ontario shows as the first destination, with almost 48% of students having chosen this province, followed by BC with 32%. For a reference, Quebec shows in third with 15%. As for the motivations of this choice, 48% stated that they were motivated by the qualities of the city and what it has to offer, 18% by the weather, 11% due to English being the main language, 7% because French was the main language, and 4% because of the cost benefit. It is noteworthy that before the pandemic started, we had direct flights from Sao Paulo to Toronto, and seasonal flights to Montreal as well. But people going to Vancouver didn't have the option of a direct flight, for instance. So for this next slide, I'm going to be speaking about Brazil and COVID-19. Brazil, as most countries, has been greatly impacted by COVID-19. Social isolation measures have been determined by states, and they vary depending on the region. States are currently working on plans to reopen the economy. We now have more than, unfortunately, and this is a very sad number, we have more than 100,000 deaths in Brazil and 3 million cases of COVID-19. So it's the second most impacted country in the world. For the education sector, at all levels, they have transitioned online. Some public universities decided to cancel classes altogether. Challenges faced by institutions, mostly public, include the very uneven access to quality internet, computer, and smartphones by their students, hence the decision of many federal universities to cancel classes. So at the beginning of the pandemic, commercial flights were reduced by 90%. Air Canada suspended flights in Brazil on March 28th and is currently planned to resume them in early September. The USA has also temporarily banned travelers coming from Brazil as of May 29th. Therefore, those Brazilians traveling to Canada for non-discretionary purposes have the option to fly either through Europe or through Mexico at this point. To apply for a visa, you have to go through a visa application center, and these visa application centers in Brazil are currently closed. We have 5 of them, but they're all closed at this point. And the visa section is processing urgent cases and online applications at this point. Brazilian economy is being greatly impacted. The World Bank forecasts a drop of 8% in the GDP for 2020. Which is similar to that estimated by the Bank of America. Another challenge is that the Brazilian currency has been greatly devalued, as you can see on this slide. So at the beginning of the year, 1 Canadian dollar was 3.099 Brazilian reais, and now it's 4.073. So it's been greatly devalued, unfortunately. As for students, FPP has recently done a survey with their database of students seeking to study abroad, among which more than 4,500 Brazilians replied. Only 24% of them stated that the pandemic had not affected their plans to study abroad at all. 57% stated they had to postpone it, and 9% said that they no longer plan to study abroad. When asked if due to the COVID-19 crisis, they would consider replacing their study abroad program for an online program instead, only 17% of Brazilians stated they would. Another question in the survey was if the COVID-19 crisis had impacted their financial situation, forcing them to adapt their plans to study abroad. 56% of Brazilians stated yes, they now needed to consider cheaper options, and 23% replied that they now needed to consider staying for less time than originally planned. So we all know that the situation is very challenging. It's very uncertain. We don't know when a vaccine would be available, when the regular visa processing will resume, when flights will become more available, when the borders will reopen, the extent of the economic recession and the devaluation of currencies in the main sending markets. So we all know it's a very challenging situation. And on the next slide, for the post-COVID-19, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what we recommend in the current scenario. So we recommend that you keep engaging with potential students, with your institutional partners, and with the agents that represent you. Based on conversations we have been having with stakeholders in the market, Canada continues to be the destination of choice to Brazilians, even with the pandemic. And you want to be on students' minds once they are ready to travel again, which we hope will be soon. So in that sense, digital promotion and creative, innovative models of recruitment are great allies. We recommend that you use social media to your favor, use your alumni to promote your institution, and remember that videos get more engagement than simple texts. Regarding possible opportunities, we also foresee a greater interest in partnerships that do not necessarily involve mobility due to the current situation. So this can include development or deepening of virtual exchange programs. It can include institutional partnerships for joint delivery of online programs, research partnerships related to COVID-19, the selling of content or curriculum to schools, the licensing of online learning platforms. And most importantly, we also recommend that you use your trade commissioner network in Brazil. As I mentioned, we have 6 trade commissioners covering education throughout the country, 1 in each of our offices. We're here to support you, to provide you with market intelligence and qualified contacts for the partnerships you're seeking. So feel free to contact us at any time. For the second part of this webinar, each trade commissioner will be presenting on the states they cover. So I'll start with Sao Paulo. So Anna, if you can move to the next slide, please. So Sao Paulo, which is the state I cover, offers great opportunities given the importance of the state in terms of its large population and also its economy. The state alone is responsible for more than 30% of the Brazilian GDP and is also the leading commercial and industrial center of South America. However, it is also a very competitive market with all competitor countries very active here. Sao Paulo has a high number of private high schools, including international schools, and many of them are interested in having Canadian universities and colleges come and present the option of pursuing post-secondary studies abroad. And in Canada. So before the pandemic, we were also seeing their interest in partners for special programs such as summer or winter camps, for instance. At this point, these plans are currently on hold. So it remains to be seen how they're going to be following up on that after the pandemic. A great number of agencies have their headquarters here in Sao Paulo where key decisions are made. So agencies want to diversify their offer. Universities and colleges are usually of great interest to them. Higher education institutions in the state of Sao Paulo also seek to engage in two-way exchange programs, which might include dual diploma or research collaboration components. And it's interesting to note, and I believe we can say that for the whole country, the institutions here are more receptive to that kind of approach than to institutions that are only focused on recruiting Brazilian students. Because of the strong competition, doing business in Sao Paulo is a matter of establishing a relationship. Agreements cannot be completed after only one single contact. Also, English language programs for professional development are excellent to mark in the region as there is great demand for bilingual business professionals that are proficient in English. Study exchange programs for undergrad students and grad students are also another service in high demand. University students are usually more interested in exchange programs rather than going abroad to take their full undergrad coursework, especially consider the cost involved in living abroad. And several Sao Paulo universities have already signed MOUs with Canadian universities, but because of the size of the market, many universities, more particularly those outside the city of Sao Paulo and private universities, are also interested in developing partnerships for student exchanges and joint research partnerships, as the state contributes greatly to the country's scientific articles published in international journals. So the main universities here in Sao Paulo include, and are not limited to, but they include USP, Unicamp, Unesp, Unifesp, UFABC, UFSCar, ITA, and Mackenzie, which are also very research intensive. They have all been selected by CAPES for the program of institutional internationalization. And great business schools in Sao Paulo include Fundação Getúlio Vargas, known as FGV, and INSPER, which are double and triple accredited respectively. We will now go to Rio with our colleague, Rafael. Rafael, are you there? I know that Rafael was having some connection problems today, so perhaps. So I think she might have had some Wi-Fi problems. So Rafael is our trade commissioner in Rio de Janeiro, and she covers not only the state of Rio de Janeiro, but also Espírito Santo, and she also covers creative industries. So Rio de Janeiro is the second largest state in terms of population and GDP after Sao Paulo. They also have great universities such as the Federal University of Rio de Janeiro, the State University of Rio de Janeiro, PUC-Rio, UFF. They are amongst the top 20 in the country. Three of them are also ranked in the top 20 for research. UFRG is also home to the largest technological park in Brazil. Universities in that state are interested in joint research projects as well as student and teacher mobility. There are also presentation opportunities in international high schools and local private high schools in Rio de Janeiro and Espírito Santo. Education fairs are usually a good opportunity to promote the English language courses and higher education programs. And do not neglect Espírito Santo. So for the next slide, I believe, Franz, with Minas Gerais.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, by the way. My name is Franz, and I am a trade commissioner in charge for the educational sector in the state of Minas Gerais. This will be a great opportunity to showcase the educational sector here in Minas Gerais. This state is located in the central part of the country, just in between Rio de Janeiro, Sao Paulo, and Brasilia, and halfway from the south and north regions of the country. Just to give you an idea how big Minas Gerais is. The state is the size of France and has a population of 21 million people. Its capital city is Belo Horizonte, with 2.5 million inhabitants. Minas Gerais has the third largest GDP in Brazil. Belo Horizonte, as a capital city, has currently one of the highest rates of economic growth in Brazil, an increase of 1% in 2019 compared to the previous year. The state is also the center of this country for the mining industry, accounting for over 53% of the total Brazil mineral production. The state has as well a very strong telecommunication, agribusiness, metallurgy, electronics, automotive, biotechnology, and tourism sectors. In terms of public, fundamental, and elementary educations, Minas Gerais has the second largest public education network in Brazil, with approximately 4 million students aged from 5 to 17 years old. Public schools in Brazil are free of charge, so these public schools are populated by students coming from classes C and D mainly. So I would say that key opportunities with public schools in Minas Gerais will be long distance and online courses for English and French learning, summer camps programs as well, but depend on the total cost per student for this kind of program. Minas Gerais has already done a summer camps program with Canada for public schools in 2014, 2015, and the maximum cost per student at that time was $2,000 per student. Minas Gerais has as well a very good K-12 private schools that sent a lot of students abroad in a regular basis for 1 year, half a year, and summer camps programs. These are students coming from classes A and B mainly, so far able to do studies abroad. Also important, I should mention the state has an international K-12 schools already in place. They are Italian, American, and Canadian schools. Some of the local K-12 schools sign agreements with foreign institutions for academic exchange programs. Other K-12 schools operate through local travel agencies. We do have a lot of local travel agencies established in Minas Gerais, and normally K-12 schools operate with them in order to send students abroad. So the main opportunities for the private K-12 schools might be partnership agreements for short and long-term student exchange programs, partnership agreements with Canadian universities for undergraduate courses, summer camps program, normally in July, and finally, dual diploma curriculums. About colleges, the state of Minas Gerais is also very well served. These technical schools are public ones in their large majority and populated by students coming from classes C and D mainly. These students cannot afford to do studies outside the country in many cases. Colleges in Minas Gerais are currently suffering a lot because of recent cuts on their operational budgets, as well as because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The best approach would be to propose programs to form and train professors through long-distance courses in the specific areas. As I mentioned previously, the state of Minas Gerais is very strong in mining, biotech, and agribusiness, and these technical schools, they form and prepare professionals to those areas. So I would say that we have a lot of opportunities to sign with them long-distance training and educational programs, to sign cooperation agreements, to do common research, and to sign agreements for professors' exchange programs as well. About higher education, I must say that Minas Gerais has the largest private and public higher education networks in Brazil. We have over 430 private universities and 14 public ones. Among the top 10 universities with the best evaluations in Brazil, 5 of them are located in the state of Minas Gerais. As per Times Higher Education ranking of last year, the Federal University of Minas Gerais ranks first in Brazil and 5th in Latin America in terms of research, innovation, internationalization, teaching, and market. We also have other very important federal universities, such as the Federal University of Lavras, the Federal University of Viçosa, and the Federal University of Triângulo Mineiro, among the top 10 in Brazil. Just to give you an idea, UFMG, the Federal University of Minas Gerais, is helping the state of Minas with the manufacturing of face masks and ventilators to be donated to the state-owned hospitals in the state of Minas Gerais. According to the National Agency for the Improvement of Higher Education in Brazil, CAPES, the state of Minas Gerais has 62 post-graduation courses. I'm talking about master and PhD degrees in levels 6 and 7, which means levels of excellence according to CAPES. In terms of opportunities with local public and private universities, I would say they are looking to sign partnership agreements for students and professors' mobility, such as a sandwich programs, and to sign partnership agreements to do common research. As well, they work a lot with MyTax programs in the state of Minas Gerais. In terms of business school, Minas Gerais is also very well served in that segment. Just to mention few business schools in the state, we have Getúlio Vargas and João Pinheiro Foundations and IBMEC, all of them already established in Minas Gerais since a long time ago. We also have Dom Cabral Foundation, which is the top 1 business school in Latin America, according to the Financial Times. Dom Cabral Foundation is a Brazilian partner of Schema, a French business school that operates in Brazil as well as in other countries around the world. So I'm getting to the end of my presentation, but before to conclude it, I need to say that high schools, technical schools, and universities established in Minas Gerais, they are always in search for international partners. So far, you are very welcome to prospect opportunities in the state of Minas Gerais. We are going to have our virtual fair and matchmaking this coming September, and I'd like to invite all of you to attend and participate on that B2B and virtual trade show. Please count on me to help you to do business over here. Thank you very much for your time and patience. Keep safe. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Franz. We're now with Isabela Duarte for the Northeast region.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very much for being here with us today. As the slide is saying, the Northeast region in Brazil is quite large. We cover 9 states: Maranhão, Piauí, Ceará, Rio Grande do Norte, Paraíba, Pernambuco, Alagoas, Sergipe, and Bahia. Our office is based in Pernambuco, Recife, the state capital. And basically, as Franz pointed, Brazil is a very large country, very similar to Canada. And the northeast of Brazil, just to give you an idea, is almost the size of Venezuela, with a population of approximately 51 million. And I think this is one of the important things about Brazil. There are many different Brazils. And the conditions vary according to the region. And as such, in the Northeast region, most of the universities are very much focused on the SMET courses, mainly IT and computing. It's their vocation here. We have a very strong sort of maths and engineering background in the states of the Northeast. Universities in the region are very much still seeking greater international engagement, as the majority of the universities look at Sao Paulo and the axis of the southeast of Brazil. And we have very good institutions here. And I think they would welcome very much the sort of two-way relationship, not just recruiting students, as Fernanda mentioned in the very beginning. I think an element of research or engagement, institution to institution, is kind of necessary, particularly in these challenging days. And one thing that's very interesting is about Recife in Pernambuco is that we are home to the Porto Digital, the digital hub, which is Brazil's leading technology park and innovation environment. And within the Porto Digital, there's the CESA School, which is perhaps the best or one of the best IT schools in Brazil, and is very much focused on developing different skills from the students. So one of the things that you can be sure is students coming out of Brazil and the Northeast as a whole, they're very focused and very well prepared. And in Pernambuco, particularly, we are no strange to the context of foreign education. And despite the current context of COVID-19, I think the students in the upper middle class in their families, respectively, still recognize the value and the benefits of world-class education. I personally have been participating on a number of webinars, and when the time comes for questions from students, the Brazilian students are still very interested, and I think, if anything, many of them, given the situation in Brazil with the COVID-19, are now more than ever much more determined to study abroad. So yes, there has been bumps along the road, but the idea of studying abroad in Brazil is very, very connected with the idea of a dream. So I'm not despondent. I think there is a positive coming out of all of this. And I think the interest from the students are very strong. I don't know if some of you know, maybe some of you might know, but the state government of Pernambuco has its own exchange program, which has sent more than 4,000 high school students to study in Canada for 6 months. And this program has been successful, so much so that all the states have created similar type of programs, which is good because it highlights the capabilities of Canada in terms of education. And it's a little bit of a shift from students wanting to go to study in the US or the UK. So Canada is very well perceived in the region. Another interesting fact is that Recife also pioneered pioneered the adoption of an offshore curriculum in Brazil. And since then, many schools have come and gone, but from different countries. But Canada remains the strongest, I would say, the strongest country in the region. And as pointed out at the slide in the beginning, these universities are very strong in the northeastern region, and they're still seeking for opportunities to engage with you guys. And I think although we are not having the fair in September, it's a great opportunity to try different means and use the platform now to access even more institutions online, because we would be able to I don't know, reach those little pockets that we might not be able through the fair. And I think this is a great opportunity for those that know Brazil, in particular for those that have never been to Brazil. It would be a nice footprint for you. And I do hope that you come you participate in the FTP fair in September. And should you have any queries and inquiries that you want to make with regards to the Northeastern region, we'd be more than happy to help you guys. And we welcome you very much with our online arms very much open. So I'll pass on to our next colleague, and I do hope to see you virtually in September. Fernanda, next one.
Yes, thank you, Isabella. So Paulo Orlando is now going to be speaking about the South region of Brazil.
Okay, thank you, Fernanda, and good afternoon, everyone. Well, I think it's a good opportunity to talk a little bit about it's a great opportunity to talk a little bit about the South of Brazil. I'm responsible for the South region of Brazil, which is composed by 3 states, Rio Grande do Sul, Santa Catarina, and Paraná. I'm based in Porto Alegre, which is the capital of the Rio Grande do Sul state, the southernmost state of Brazil, bordering Uruguay and Argentina. It's a capital with metropolitan area with 4.5 million inhabitants. The whole South region has more than 30 million inhabitants. It represents 6.7% of Brazil's total area, but it's responsible for nearly 18% of Brazilians' GDP. The region is the most European part of the country due to waves of immigration that start mid-1800, mainly from countries like Italy and Germany, but also from other countries like Spain, Portugal, of course, Netherlands, Poland, Russia, UK, and many others. It's a very multicultural place, somehow similar to Canada with multiculturalism. It's a place with of immigrants, with the people from everywhere. The Human Development Index, the HDI, it's higher than the Brazilian average. Also, the income per capita is also higher than the Brazilian average. The workforce is considered of very high quality here in the south of Brazil. It's a skilled workforce. It's a highly industrialized region with a very diversified economy. It's very industrialized, very strong in the metal mechanic centers. We have 2 major centers in Joinville and Caxias do Sul, considered the second and third largest hubs of metal mechanic industries after Sao Paulo. The region houses the second largest network of education agents. Remember, Fernanda said that most of the education is driven by agents. This region holds the second largest network of agents, according to Belta. In the education sector, there is a very high demand for partnerships for all education institutions. Canada is more than welcome to sign a partnership with the institutions south of Brazil. They are very happy to welcome Canadian universities for student exchange and also for projects of research and development. English is the second most popular language. There's a good demand of people looking, students and professionals looking for training in English, for proficiency in English. French is also quite popular in the state of Paraná. There's a good demand for French in this region. We have a good network of universities, very public and private. We have high schools that adopt the Canadian curriculum, dual diploma programs, diplomas from Brazil and Canada. I believe there are very good opportunities in this region for such kind of programs. We have also housed a good number of bilingual schools, international schools. It's becoming more and more popular in the South region. For my understanding, I think there's a good and a great potential for corporate trainings of short courses. This kind of short courses are very popular among the industries, and I think that's a good opportunity to explore here in Brazil. Also, the region is well known for the very strong and very important tech parks. I can mention to you at least two of them, Tecnopuc and Tecnocinos. Both of them award as the best park in Brazil 4 times each one, according to Amprotec, which is the National Association of Tech Parks in Brazil. And I think that's it for the South of Brazil. Just an overview. We'll be here for the education fair in September, the FPP education fair, virtual fair this year. We normally have 2 FPP fairs in my region. It's in Curitiba and Porto Alegre. This year will be virtual. I hope you join us. And if you need any further information about any university, college, high school in the south of Brazil, I'll be more than happy to provide you all the information you need. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Paulo. And we'll now go to Bonnie Berger from Brasilia. She's going to be speaking about the market there.
Hi there. So my name is Bonnie Berger, as Fernanda said. On your screen or in the presentation, I'm not sure if you're looking at that, but the person's name who is there, as Fernanda said early on, will likely not be following through with this sector. I'm the Senior Trade Commissioner. I manage the program here in Brazil, Brasilia, the capital of the country. The area that we look after in terms of education promotion are basically the central states. Brasilia, the capital, is located in the Federal District, often known as DF. Also, there's Goiás, Mato Grosso do Sul, and Tocantins. Brasilia is interesting, not only because it's located in it's the capital, located in the DF, which is, as you probably know, was created not that long ago. The old capital used to be Rio de Janeiro. It is the 3rd largest metropolitan center in Brazil and has the highest GDP per capita. That's quite interesting in terms of education recruitment. The incomes in this area of the country are high, quite stable, and there's quite a mobile population. And so there's quite a high demand for top quality education. That means that there's quite a few excellent private high schools which are most interested in partnering with Canadian institutions. The other thing that's interesting here is that according to the 2018 English Proficiency Index, the Federal District has the highest level of English proficiency. As well, there are quite a few federal government employees who are fluent in French. It's noteworthy that the diplomatic school here requires that people speak at least 3 languages, including their mother tongue, and then 2 others. Very often those are English and French. And as my colleagues mentioned earlier, that can include German, Spanish, and so forth. One of the country's top universities, which ranks number 9 in Brazil, is the University of Brasilia, popularly known as UNB. It's number 27 in Latin America as per the 2019 QS ranking. It's committed to excellence in knowledge and the promotion of Brazil's international agenda. So with that, it becomes quite a good target for internationalization work with international partners. There are private universities such as Católica Sao Paulo, the UCB, and IESB. There are a few of them, and these score high in national rankings. But the opportunities in this area of the country are not limited just to the capital. There are the cities of Goiânia, Anápolis, and Formosa in the state of Goiás. And then there are other high growth markets in the Central West, such as the capitals of Cuiabá and Mato Grosso, which I mentioned earlier is one of the states, Campo Grande, which is in Mato Grosso do Sul, and Palmas, which is in the state of Tocantins. Earlier on, I believe it was Fernanda alluded to the bilingualism quotient here. And actually, there are 7 major bilingual schools in the capital, and 1 bilingual French school, the Lycée Français François Mitterrand. Of course, you've got the British school, the American school, Maple Bear, which has Canadian origins, and so on. So I think that, our experience is that when education fairs have been done here, there's always quite a lot of interest. I thought it was interesting, the reference to British Columbia as a place everybody wants to go, but that they end up in Ontario. Of course, we know that there are at least 8 more provinces and 3 territories that have some great schools. And in fact, my colleague Franz Brandenburger referred to the Instituto Dom Cabral, which has already cooperation with some of the major business schools in Canada, and is certainly a great target. But all that to say, I think that there's a lot of room for growth, despite the success that has been had here. And so we would be very happy to follow up with anyone who is interested in further information about the capital and the surrounding states. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bonnie, and great that you mentioned the other provinces in Canada. Of course, we know that for the international education strategy, one of our goals is to promote Canada and all the provinces and territories so that we have Brazilians going across the country. We have done a media tour last year to Atlantic Canada to showcase that those provinces. We were also planning another one for the prairies, which couldn't happen this year because of the pandemic, but we also use our social media to showcase Canada and all the different provinces that offer great options to study in Canada, so that Brazilians are more knowledgeable about the whole country and how they can find great options throughout this huge country. So thank you, Bonnie and my colleagues. Before we take your questions on the chat, I'd like to mention that we have 2 large fairs every year, as Paulo has mentioned. So one in March and the other one in September, October. They happen in several cities across the country. Our upcoming EduCanada Fair and matchmaking will take place online this year because of the pandemic. So on September the 23rd, we'll have B2B sessions, and the 24th, we'll have the fair. This is an excellent opportunity to engage with Brazilian students from across the country. So even from cities that you wouldn't normally go to when you come to Brazil, this is an option to reach those students that are in more distant cities. The matchmaking is also a great opportunity to engage with local contacts, be them high school counselors, agents, or post-secondary institutions. So the deadline to register for the matchmaking sessions is this Monday, August the 17th, with FPP. We will then send a survey for those registered to identify your interest in the country and match you with agents and institutions in your regions of interest in Brazil. And for the next slide, other events in Brazil. For those of you that represent post-secondary institutions and are interested in institutional partnerships, FAUBA is the ideal event in the country. It is the largest annual event in higher education for international partnerships in Latin America. This year's edition was postponed to April 2021 because of the pandemic. The Trade Commissioner Service in Brazil participates in this conference every year, and we also organize side events in the margins of this conference, such as B2Bs and networking events. So if you're interested in attending it, feel free to connect with us for further information. The next one will happen in April in Minas Gerais. So we'll now take a few questions from the chat. I'd like to thank all of you that have already sent some questions. I've tried to answer those that I was able to. If you are interested in contacts in Brazil, be them for colleges or for high schools, I saw people asking about Francophone or French high schools. We do have them in Brazil, like Bonnie mentioned the Lycée in Brasilia. We have the Lycée Pasteur here in Sao Paulo. So we can send you a list of qualified contacts if you'd like. So I'd like to invite all of you that are interested in contacts in the market to send us an email, and we'll be happy to provide you with a list of qualified contacts. How you can register for the matchmaking event through FPP. So Filiberto, if you can send me an email, I'll connect you with FPP so that you have further information on that. How can we get those contacts? Yes, please email us. Maybe Ana Paula could leave on that second slide where you have all of our email addresses. Unfortunately, as Modi mentioned, the email address for Brasilia is not the correct one there. But if you're interested in connecting with Brasilia, please contact us and we'll be happy to connect you with Bonnie. What else? Somebody asked about about who joined the virtual fairs in May. FPP always provides reports of those fairs where we can see the profile of students, what they were interested in. And so please feel free to contact us and we'll be able to send you the link that has information about that. Franz, I know that Rosa Aguilar had asked you a question on the chat. I'm not sure if you're able to read it and answer her, perhaps.
I wasn't able to read the.
Okay, I'll try to find it here. Friends, this question comes from Rosa Aguilar. In the opportunity case for teachers in colleges to be trained on long distance training, is there any funding available?
Unfortunately, we have canceled this activity. It should take place this year in May because of the COVID-19. The organizers of this trade show has decided to postpone that event to August, and finally they decided to cancel that event, and we are going to have CIMEX-MIN for next year only. It might take place in May 2021. That means not in this fiscal year, the next one, and we are going to plan funds to organize a corporate training presentation in parallel to this trade show next fiscal year, not this year, for the next fiscal year.
Thank you, Franz. We also have a question from Fabio. I know, is there any update from the immigration section about visa processing in Brazil, and if the VACs will resume working? So at this point, the VACs, there are 5 VACs in Brazil, visa application centers, that is. They are all closed at this point. We don't have information on when they should reopen. And as mentioned, the Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada, IRCC, is processing study permit applications. So online applications which are complete are currently being prioritized. So by complete, they say they mean they have the required information and documents, including biometrics. So these are being prioritized and will be processed as quickly as possible. However, the challenge is that with the VACs closed, we cannot receive the passports at this point at the consulate. So we'll be following up on that situation. As you know, it's a very fluid situation, which can change quite rapidly. So at this point, we don't have a date for the VACs to reopen. Do we know if stage 1 study permits are already being issued? So I believe what Karen is referring to is that applications for study permits being received before mid-September are going to be analyzed in 2 stages. Unfortunately, I do not have that information. If I could ask you to please send me an email, and I'll follow up with the immigration section and advise you, because I'm unfortunately not sure. I think, not sure if anyone else has any questions. What about processes made in person? The student has biometrics and medical exams done, everything. Would there been information? We do have students getting their. Okay. Yes.
About matchmaking and B2B registration.
I'm sorry.
They're asking about matchmaking and B2B registrations.
Okay, so the matchmaking and B2B are going to take place in the margins of the EduCanada fairs in September. So if you're interested in attending the fairs and the matchmaking, please feel free to send us an email and we'll connect you with FPP, which is the organizer of the fair. They organize it on our behalf. So feel free to send us an email and we'll be happy to connect you. Are parents interested in having their child take online high school credit courses? Does anybody want to answer that question? The fee for FPP fair, I'm sorry, I'm not sure. Jasmine, I can verify and let you know. Well, regarding the online high school credit courses, we do have some institutions here in Brazil that partnered with Canadian online high schools. So there is some interest. There was at least some interest before the pandemic. It depends as well on the market you're interested in. So I would suggest that you contact us. We can schedule a call to further discuss this and see how we can support you in your efforts in the market. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay, well, we're now 15 minutes past 3. So I believe there are no further questions at this point. But if you do have further questions and would like to connect with us, please send us an email. We're here to support your efforts in the country and to provide market intelligence, qualified contacts, whatever you need. So feel free, you have our email addresses. If you'd like to have a copy of this presentation as well, please send us an email and we'll send you the link once it's available. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today for this presentation on the Brazilian market for education. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers. Bye bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Merci tout le monde.